A guy who's going by the name of Albert Garland, that's not his real name, writes about the fact that his wife just got pregnant with twins. Now, they have a younger son, and they were very, very excited about the idea of making sure their son has a sibling. So they wanted to have a daughter, but since they're pushing 40, they had a very hard time getting pregnant. They did artificial insemination, didn't work, it was awkward. He talks about being on a train with a jar of his own semen, and it was awkward. But then they finally went to in vitro fertilization, which cost $10,000. So that's a lot of money to get pregnant. And eventually they did get pregnant, but with twin boys.
Oops. So since it costs a lot of money, they put two whatevers in there. We've stumbled into science. that when my mind goes, oh, there's something. Anyway.
Two fertilized embryos, right?
Yeah, that. Okay. And
or fertilized eggs.
And so what wound up happening is they wanted to be safer, like, hey, in case one of it doesn't work out, we don't want to spend another $10,000. Oops, they both worked out. You got twins. And now here comes Bitter Man.
No, what's interesting is, you know, he didn't enjoy raising his son. His son is now 3 years old, but he was a colicky baby and he hated it. He said he didn't get any sleep, they were miserable, they really disliked it, which is why I don't understand why they decided to get pregnant again. Let's say the ideal situation occurred and they had one girl. If you hated raising one kid, why are you gonna have another?
No, the only redeeming quality of this guy, and he wrote this post anonymously, because the things he says in there are devastating, couldn't admit that in polite society, is that at least he's honest about how they wanted, that they're selfish about this, right? That they wanted another sibling for their child because they had another sibling and they thought it worked out well for them. And that they were selfish to have the first kid in the first place because they wanted a kid. Now the rest of it is a disaster.
Yes. So he spoke to a few of his friends who had twins, and one of his friends told him, think of the worst thing you can imagine. That's what it is like. Another person told him,
Jesus.
I literally couldn't wait to get back to work. Every weekend is way too long.
Man, these people have horrible lives.
And a former colleague also told him, twins were always my worst nightmare.
Okay, so now this guy writes the whole post about, oh my God, what are we gonna do? They even thought about aborting one of them. Like, oh, twins is too hard. Let's just knock out one of them.
But then they considered the idea, but then they said, no, that's the wrong thing to do. We went through all this trouble to get pregnant. We can't go ahead and do that, you know? Anyway, so he also says really terrible things about his firstborn. He says, when our first son was born, I was naive. I remember thinking it was going to be nice to be home for a while and have some time off. I couldn't have been more wrong. Those first 6 weeks were brutal. Then the colic arrived. 2 months later, we were shattered, frazzled, damaged.
Damaged. Okay, now this guy's an idiot. First of all, wait, you didn't realize that you might have to stay up at night because you have a young baby? You didn't know that came as a surprise to you. Well, I think you set the wrong expectations for yourself. It's like, why didn't anybody tell me these things cry? I mean, how stupid are you, right? Yeah. And then, do you have the quote about how his son, he thinks, cries on purpose to drive him crazy?
Yes, he says the following. 2 years later, our son was still waking up for hours on end in the middle of the night. 3 years later, we still struggle mightily with a boy who's fiercely strong-willed and seems to inherently know that crying pushes our buttons.
You're so stupid. Of course, that's the whole point of crying, is to try to push your buttons. But apparently you didn't get that, so you're like, oh man, you're driving, I'm frazzled, I'm damaged, just stop crying. In fact, what you're doing is you're sending a message to the kid. If you really want something, cry, because it drives that dude crazy, and then he'll just give it to you.
Okay, it continues, and this is the part that really rubbed me the wrong way. He says the following. So tell me how this isn't going to suck, referring to the twins. Did I mention we live in a one-bedroom apartment? Why did you get pregnant?
Yeah, how did you live in a one-bedroom apartment? You spent $10,000. He must be in New York, right? There's no other way that makes sense. Because
if you live in a one-bedroom apartment and you have one child already, you're already in a world of trouble. Don't have more kids. You're in a one-bedroom apartment. I just don't understand this guy's reasoning. Anyway, he continues, sure, in 10 years, I could have close to a starting 5 of super athletic NBA hopeful alpha males living under my roof, smelling up the joint. But right now, it's hard for us to see twins as good news.
It's really hard to have sympathy for this guy. Look, and I get it, man. Some people, like his friends who are having trouble with the kids, and twins is super hard. I mean, one baby at a time is super hard. Twins is super hard. So I could have sympathy for you, but I don't have sympathy for this guy, who's apparently a total clown.
So let me jump in and just say, he doesn't seem like the brightest guy on the planet. However, I am very, very happy that he wrote this. Because this is the kind of stuff that no one would write like 15 years ago. All of a sudden we're experiencing like this flood of people who are being honest about their parenting experiences, and there's something refreshing about that. Because a lot of people have that romanticized view of having kids, right? And now all of a sudden you're being slapped in the face with what the reality is, and people are starting to kind of second guess it and really think about it and plan for it instead of just doing it because that's what they're expected to do.
Yeah, so it has a bit of an upside, but it also has the downside of parents like this, apparently.
Yeah.
Look, I'm going to be slightly unbearable here and give you 3 hints on what to do about crying babies, and then I'm probably live to regret it because I'm not going to be able to control my kid later, right? But number 1, don't feed into the crying. Don't freak out if they start crying. Otherwise, you're just encouraging them. You're giving them a sign this works. Either laugh it off, maybe even ignore it, or move on to something else. Changing the topic winds up like this morning, Pro was crying because he didn't want to go to Pro office. Okay?
Pro office?
That's daycare. He calls this Baba office, and Mommy has an office, so he calls his daycare Pro office.
That is insanely cute.
You know what? I'll give you one more cute Pro story in the post game. We don't have time for it here. Okay, anyway, and so I'm like, Pro, that's a sad day for you, which I say to him all the time. We're going to Pro office. I got to go to Bob office. Up and at him. Here we go, right? And he's like, I'm like, okay, that's cool. Oh, I'm like, I crashed my car the other day. You want to see it? He's like, what? Crash car? Baba car? I'm like, yeah. Okay, crying's gone because now he's like, oh, I want to see the car. I'm like, come on, let's go. Okay, he's like, all right, let's go. And so, you know, stuff like that. And if you remember the story I told about how he wanted some toy airplane?
Yeah.
And I said, well, if you're crying, it's not possible to get it for you, right? Like if you stop crying, then maybe it could be possible, right? And then but not then. We walked away, we did something else, and like 20 minutes later we came back. I'm like, oh, you're not crying. Why don't I get the plane for you?
That's a good way of doing it.
You know who I learned that from? Fair is fair. Steve-O.
Oh, okay.
Okay, you wouldn't expect Steve-O to be a good parent.
Oh, damn! Needlessly under that bus.